Welcome once again to Fantasy Fiction Focus. We're here today with Sarah Kades, who is based in Calgary. You're right here in the city where I live too. How are you this morning?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Simon?
Well, I don't know if I'm wonderful, but I think I'm fine. Thank you very much. It says here on your information that you are a eco-romance novelist. I have never heard this before. What is an eco-romance novelist?
Well, I hadn't heard of it before either. The writing conference When Words Collide actually had a panel called Eco-Fiction that I ended up being a panelist on because in my books, the environment and ecology plays a pretty crucial role, as important as any character in my stories. And so turns out I'm not the only one who values that and takes that seriously and weaves it into my fiction. So there's a group of us. We're a whole we're actually like a subgenre, but in each genre there are, eco science fiction, eco romance, eco mystery. So yeah, it's a new subgenre.
Good Lord. So now, and because it mentions also on your website that you write literary, romantic, eco-fiction where nature, love, and humor meet.
Yes. Those three things are important to me. Nature, I mean, I just touched on it with the ecology stuff, the environmental stuff. I was an environmental consultant, both in the academic and I guess consulting worlds for over 15 years. Love the environment, love nature. I love the inspiration that nature gives. I totally believe in love, and it's real, and the power of it, whether romantic or platonic, and how it can change our world for the better and change each individual person's life for the better. So why not include that in the fiction that I write too, and making love, true love, real love, authentic love, normal and relevant and applicable. And humor is so important in life because it helps us deal with those rocky roads and when we're going through turmoil, and humor helps us go through. And whether it's and humor is something we can share with other people, and it brings us together. Yeah, so those three, I like to weave those three together because I think it builds a pretty compelling foundation for whatever story I want to tell. And it's fun to write with all three.
Yeah, no, you mentioned, of course, as well. I'm aware that your background, a lot of people's background for writers is journalism, or they're writing a kid's book because they just become a grandparent or whatever. But your background is archaeology. Now, and we were chatting about this before we went on the air here. But I'm familiar with an archaeologist who goes around looking for temples of doom and on last crusades and things, and archaeologists who write books about their discoveries and things, but an archaeologist who is inspired by that to do romance seems a bit unusual.
I would agree with you, but for me, it's my normal. I met my husband on an archaeology dig in Manitoba in 1998, so a number of years ago. But so for me, archaeology and romance is very real, and actually that was a pretty solid field season. There were lots of couples that came together actually long term. Two couples got married, so that's kind of crazy, and quite a few were long term after that. So archaeology and romance, it just makes sense. Tents, ticks, dirt, all super romantic.
Doesn't sound like it. But the other thing you were inspired by, I think, is the paranormal. That you've always been a sort of a paranormal, interested in paranormal stuff, and that works its way into your literary work as well. So you've always been interested in the paranormal and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, I think paranormal, for me, it almost gives me permission to play more when I'm writing, and I don't know if that is just me or if other people feel that, or maybe it's because the first novella I wrote was a paranormal, and it just allowed me, because anything goes, right? Because it's paranormal. As long as you explain it and make it relevant and believable and applicable to the story, then you're gold, right? But it gave me permission to play with writing, and it really opened the door for writing for me, because I had no, I don't know, no aspirations of being a writer. I quite literally fell into writing, encouraged by a published author in Manitoba. And she's like, Sarah, write the story, just try it. And so because it was paranormal, I think I think it went better for me personally because it was paranormal and it allowed me to play more and explore those crazy things that you want to explore when you're writing your first piece. So for me, it worked out super well.
And paranormal romance, as far as I know, is a reasonably hot genre, like steampunk or historical fiction or something. Paranormal romance seems to be quite popular these days, doesn't it?
Paranormal romance is huge, but this is where that doesn't help me because the paranormal romances that are huge are like shifters and werewolves and vampires, or at least from the folks that are telling me the stats. Yeah, it's absolutely hot, super huge, which is fantastic for authors who write that style of paranormal. But I'm into different, like Claiming Love has an angel in training. Like it's a very different style. Even the archaeology, I guess, inspiration, not all archaeologists had the same experience, but connecting with the landscape or connecting with artifacts that we'd uncover and really feeling something that we couldn't necessarily explain that made sense, but you feel it. Like there's an energy there that you feel that there's no background for. Like there's no rational explanation why we're feeling it, but I felt it, and it was powerful and compelling, and I quite respected it. So that also inspired me to let archaeology be part of a paranormal book as well, because there is mystery involved.
Now, you were holding up the book there, of course, because we have neglected to mention your book so far, and so we probably should. Now, tell us about this particular one first, and then I want to know all about everything else. So what about this? What is this? Tell us about this.
So this book, Claiming Love, it was the first novella I ever wrote. Like I had mentioned earlier, a published author in Manitoba had a series idea where all the authors would look at the same picture and then write the story, and that would be a series. And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, awesome. And then the next 2 months, a story started kicking around in my head. And then the next time I was chatting with my friend on the phone, I mentioned that, and she's like, well, write it. But I'm not a writer. And she's like, well, what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't get accepted? Like, try it, see what happens. So I thought, okay, jump in. Why not? It's creative, sounds fun. Then it'll at least get the story out of my head so it can stop banging around in there. So I wrote it, and it worked out. The manuscript got accepted. I had an incredible was assigned an incredible editor, which was awesome. Yeah, so that was a good intro in, and like I said, having it be paranormal, it really helped usher me in. This friend also wrote pretty steamy books, and I knew that wasn't my style. Super steamy wasn't my style. So I wrote it to a heat level that I hoped the reader wouldn't laugh at, right? Because you want the reader to know it, to believe it, right? You want it to be believable and real and not, anyways. So that's my little joke with this one. Oh my God, I wrote it as far across that boundary as I felt I could be comfy with my mom and my mother-in-law reading it. Yeah, so did that, but realized, you know what, super saucy, super sexy isn't what I want to focus on in books. I want the story, I want the emotions, but like the physical stuff, it's there. Have it be part of the story, but not the focus of the story. So yeah. Anyway, so I was really lucky. At first was if all of us had enough ebook sales, they do a print run in an anthology. So we were lucky enough to have that, and which was awesome, great experience. And then when I got my rights back, I decided to tame it. Just so I toned it down so it was more in line with what I want, which even now that what I write is even tamer. Again, I'm interested in the human relationships, the human dynamic, the emotional dynamic, and the physical stuff needs to complement that, but not be the focus. So yeah, so then I re-released it, this version of it, which is why you might see a few other copies like on Goodreads and Amazon and stuff like that. So that was cool. Then I realized I love writing and I want to learn. So I stopped just writing and started going to workshops and joined some writing groups and really, really wanted to hone my craft because I wanted to take it seriously and such. So did that, and then started writing the book that will be released hopefully in 2 months. If everything goes on schedule. Not a paranormal, but a contemporary eco-romance. Yeah.
You've got another one as well, haven't you? As well as that one that you just showed us. What was the? There's another novel, isn't there?
Oh, Kiss Me in the Rain. That's the
one about kissing. It sounds very romantic.
Yes, Kiss Me in the Rain, another romance, but a contemporary eco-romance instead of a paranormal eco-romance. I released it at 64,000 words, then pitched it at Surrey and also to Penguin at When Words Collide. And from a very respected agent, he suggested I expand it to 100,000 because of the environmental component and because of the type of romance it was. He suggested I expand it. I talked to the Penguin editor I had also pitched it to and had asked for the full, and she's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So then I spent months expanding it because man, that was a really cool writing experience. But at first, like, you have to wrap your brain around how to expand it so that it's solid and a woven perfect harmony instead of just extra words, right? Because you don't want to be that writer who just throws in extra words. So it took me a long time, but I learned so much in that process. So this book that I'm releasing is the expanded version of Kiss Me in the Rain. I pulled the 64,000 one, have a 100,000 word count one now, and I love it. I thought I loved it before, but now I really love it. I'm just so proud of this book, and I'm so excited and hope others dig it as much as I do. Oh, I just said dig it again.
Yes, we talked about it before we came on, ladies and gentlemen. There's an archaeologist who likes to think that she digs what she does. I thought it was very funny, but maybe other people don't. But no, so this is coming out then. This is the expanded version of a previous one.
Yes.
But you must be doing something else as well. You're a writer. You have other projects, I think.
I do. I actually just started a nonfiction collaboration project, which I can't talk about lots now, but I hope by the summertime I'll be able to, shout it from rooftops. That'd be pretty cool. But it really parallels my, I guess the previous day job I had as a after archaeology. I was a traditional knowledge facilitator and cultural translator. So this nonfiction project really parallels those skill sets. And so I get my total geek on with words, which is fabulous. But the Kiss Me in the Rain is book 1 of a 5-book series. So I'm pretty busy with those. Yeah, that's a lot of words to write if they're all 100,000 each book. So yeah.
So you'll be busy with that for the next few years, then, I suppose, on this particular. But then you'll probably be sick and tired of the characters.
I hope not sick and tired, but yeah, I might. That's why I love how the nonfiction is really complementing it, because you can rest your brain from the fiction, dive into something completely different, and then when you need a break from that, dip into the fiction. But there's also more paranormal books because they're so fun to write. So they're fun to read, they're fun to write. So authors never have a problem with what story should I write next? There's usually so many banging around in our heads. It's just picking which project is the best time for each project.
So you're one of these people who came into writing a little bit later in life rather than writing in journals as a teenager, and now you're finding that you're completely addicted and you can't stop.
Yeah, that is absolutely accurate, Simon. Yeah, late, because there are some people that just know, they always know that they want to be a writer. I always knew I loved reading. Like, I was a voracious reader forever, ever since, I guess, junior high, grade school. Ever since grade school, I've been a voracious reader. But writing you're right, it's absolutely addictive. And I bring my laptop on family holidays. My family doesn't really like that. But it makes me happy, right? So when I have a few minutes to spare, I like to write.
It's a compulsion for you, but like for a lot of us. But one of the things that you'd mentioned before we came on was it was interesting that when people think about romance, joking apart, when people think about romance, they think, oh well, it's all about the steamy stuff and things like that. But it's more difficult to write the emotional stuff and the emotional connections. You would say, well, not more difficult, or it takes more time or something. Can you just explain about that briefly?
Yeah. There is that joke about romance. Yeah, romances are fluff or this or that or the other thing, or they just have the physical sex scenes. But writing a story where your characters fall in love, like falling in love, is crazy. It's in some ways easy and the most natural thing in the world, and in the other respects really hard because it's not just you anymore. There's someone else. So to write those emotions that are complicated but perfect and you're so grateful you're going through it, but it's hard to nail it, to get it right. And I take all my books seriously, and if my name's going to be on it, I want to make sure that it's solid and that people can resonate with it, and it's as authentic for those characters as possible. So emotions are tricky because life is tricky, right? So when we write fiction, even though it's fiction, we want to make it relevant and applicable to the reader, so that they feel for those characters too, and go through that gamut of emotions just like those characters are going through. So yeah, there are physical sex scenes in them, or kissing or hand holding or whatever, but that's part of life, right? So for me, it's the emotion of characters coming together. And I always use non-romantic love to support the romantic relationship, if that makes sense, because people need to believe in love in order to fall in love. And in order to believe in love, you have to have love in your life, and that support you have to be able to experience and recognize it and allow it in. So all of those threads I like to weave together, in my romance stories. And I really truly believe in valuing love, not just valuing violence. And a lot of stuff we see today is very violent, and that's quite normal to see really graphic violent stuff, whether on the news or in our entertainment or whatever. And that's cool if that's what you dig, but I would like to write really, really incredible stories that people are entertained reading, that also value love, not just violence. So
apart from, not just for the romance writers out there, aspiring or published ones, what sort of advice would you have for just for writers in general, not just in the romance, any genre?
Any genre. I would say, if you love writing, write, because the more you practice, the better you get. Accept and seek out advice from people you trust, but not at the expense of your own writing voice, because finding your own writing voice is part of the journey of writing. And when you find it and realize what you sound like on paper or on the ebook or whatever, when you find that, it's an amazing feeling. So make sure that as you're going through this journey, and when you do get help, that it's help and not somebody else's voice. Writing's a long game. This is not a get rich quick. This is art. This is a craft. This is something to be savored, worked on, and it is a labor of love. But yeah, find your support team. Find your support, because my writing exponentially jumped. My craft of my own writing jumped when I joined a really, really, really solid critique group. Very supportive, but not afraid to say, Sarah, what were you like? What is this? Why did you put this here? Or, oh, Sarah, that's not chapter 3, that's chapter 1. This is your opening scene. Take that feedback, that constructive feedback, and hear it, like really hear it, because good writers, I think there are a lot of good writers out there, but I don't just want to be good. I want to be great at this, because it means a lot to me, and I value this medium of art and creativity and social responsibility. So yeah, and have fun. Remember, the point of it is to have fun. If you're not having fun, take a step back and realize what direction, what path did you go down that got you off your track of creativity and fun and whatnot. So yeah.
So you mentioned a critique group there and everything. So you are involved in the local writing community as well, are you? Yes.
Calgary has an incredible writing community. A lot of stuff happens online, a lot of stuff in-person stuff. I do belong to Alberta Romance Writers Association. I met my critique group through them. That has been an incredible experience. We actually haven't met for a while because we have so many things going on right now. So we've lowered our critiquing stuff, but still meet up and bounce ideas off each other. And we've chatted about when words collide. I've met so many incredible people, but also writers and folks in the industry who really, really, really have helped my career. And it's always nice to have somebody to bounce ideas off from. One of my ARWA groups, we have springboard chats where some of us meet for coffee. You send out hey, anybody, can you meet for this to talk about this? Because I have questions on this. And a handful of people will show up, or maybe it's just one or two, but man, what comes out of those, it's incredible. So yeah, wherever you are, if you can find your tribe, your writing tribe, make sure it's supportive, because I've heard horror stories of not supportive critique groups or not supportive writing communities. Trust your gut on if they will support your writing career and your writing path or not. Yeah.
Now you do workshops as well for other writers, don't you?
I do. I'm a strong believer in paying it forward, and I've learned so much from other people that I want to be able to share what I've learned to hopefully make somebody else's writing path easier or somehow more fulfilling for them. So, for instance, last year at When Words Collide, the workshop that I taught was expanding your novel, because that's what I was going through. So I thought, if I'm going through this, somebody else might be going through it too. So let's offer, let me teach at least how I approached it and my successes and failures, right? Because when you're not writing for months because your brain hasn't wrapped around what you're doing, then like that self-sabotage of like scolding yourself, like, I have to get this done, I have to get this done. Well, no, like sometimes you just got to take the time to let your brain wrap around it. Nobody told me that, and it took me a few months to figure that out, that I wasn't not working on it. It was just percolating, and that was what needed to happen. So I love teaching what I've learned because I love paying it forward, and because the writing communities are so important. And I've learned so much, and I know other people have. So we all need to kind of put in our time and like help it along, and then you duck in and you duck out as needed. And I do also believe in perfect timing. So because I have had to pull back on some of this stuff. So that's okay, because when you pull back, nature doesn't do void. Somebody else steps forward. So, yeah.
Now, I think some people watching these interviews that we do often assume that people write a book and it gets published, and then they sit back as the checks roll in and everything. But you do, I presume, a lot of marketing and things. You're on social media and all that sort of stuff, right? Yes,
social media, and that I'm still figuring out. I'll be honest, I'm still figuring out, because I grew up in the 90s where stuff was more like, we didn't have that trust in well, the social media didn't exist in the 90s, but there wasn't that automatic trust of things. So that has been a hurdle that I didn't recognize really was one, but it is, and I'm working on it. What to tweet, what to post on Facebook, because again, you want it to be relevant, you want it to be witty, you want it to be funny, you want it to be your writing voice, right? So we were talking about this earlier, how are you on all the time when you're on social media? Well, you are, because you have to be, right? We figure it out as we go. So definitely the social media stuff I've been working on, and we talked about blog hops and blog tours. Some of them are really fun. I did one blog hop in 2014. It was really fun, but it was some work. I know some are a lot of work. So again, you have to budget. We're our own business, right? So we have to budget how much time for writing, how much time for editing, marketing, social stuff. Like, I only have 24 hours in a day, just like everybody else, plus a family, and I can't drive myself crazy. How am I going to allot my time?
And you do book signings and things too to promote the work?
I just started. I did my first book signing in February for the romance one at Indigo Signal Hills. That was my first one, because I can get up and teach in front of a group, no problem. But like book signings, they were really intimidating. And the manager, she's been so patient with me and asking, and finally I said, okay, there'll be a group of us. So that's nobody believes I have a shy side, but I do. That was a hurdle I had to get through. Yeah.
Well, it's important. You've got to go out and do it. Sometimes it's not always the store isn't busy. Sometimes you're not into it. You're not in the mood. But you have to do it, I suppose. But
yeah, exactly.
But your books are available, of course. They are available as ebooks and as print books. And
yes.
There is no excuse for people not buying these books. Is that correct?
That is correct. And yeah, that is correct.
Right. So we know where people can find, and we would like to thank. Well, I would like to thank you for being on here today. It's been great chatting to you, and I look forward. I'll have to probably buy one of these romance books and read them and find out what it's about. You know, this whole genre that I'm mysterious. But thanks for being on, and good luck with everything. I'm sure we'll meet on the circuit locally as the year progresses. And thank you once again, Sarah Kades, for being on the Fantasy Fiction Focus today.
Thank you, Simon. It was awesome. And yes, definitely looking forward to see you in August. You have to go to When Words Collide.